Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another deck profile. Today I want to share my AOD build with you guys, and there's multiple reasons I want to do that with you guys. One, I posted this on the Patreon about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago at this point, and this is the more refined build. This is another deck that I've been playing a lot and seeing a lot of success with in testing, and I did get a few comments saying that people wanted to see the decks I was playing because I haven't been really doing these online tournaments that have been going on. And the other thing too is a lot of people wanted to see the AOD deck list from the PPG event. And just to be completely straight up honest with you guys, when I do the top cut breakdowns, I don't have the deck list at my access because I need to record those Sunday night to be ready for Monday, so the information is fresh. And 9 times out of 10 the TOs never really release the deck lists, and if they do, it's like a day or two later. And that's not to put any blame on the tournament organizers, because it's a lot of work to, one, run the tournament, two, make sure everything's going smoothly, and then provide like a top cut data, which I'm lucky enough they provide that anyway. And not providing a deck list, I definitely don't blame them. And when they do post it, you know, a day or two later, super grateful for that. Make sure to go to PPG's YouTube channel. I believe the deck lists for the PPG event are posted there, but once again, they were posted after I did the top cut breakdown. So when I do those top cut breakdowns, guys, I'm just going off my best information with the meta. So that's what I'm trying to provide for you guys. I know generally how the decks run. I don't know every single tech option in the decks, but that's another reason why I wanted to show you guys my AOD list, because I have been playing it a lot. I've been doing quite well with it, and the deck is pretty much unchanged going into set 11. There's not too much you can add to it in set 11. Sure, there are some random generic cards you could possibly sub in, but I think as a core, this list is very good and probably pretty different than what you've been seeing. So let's just get started with it. So in this version, we're playing the actual AOD leader. Some people do prefer the Soul Striker leader. I like the AOD leader better because he synergizes more with the deck, you know, playing free AODs. I guess I'll give you a quick rundown of what he does. On the front side, attack, you may take life if you want. Look at top 5, add an AOD to your hand, and then awaken, untap 1, draw 1. On the back side, he has 2 activate mains. One says play a 2-drop or less AOD from your hand for 0 energy. The other one is pay 3, play an Agent Obstruction Unison with 3 markers on it. So the only other real leader that's being played with AOD at the moment, well, I guess technically there's 2 leaders, one being Reboot Gohan and the other one being Soul Striker Reboot. Now both of those leaders are definitely great options to run with this deck, and that's what makes this engine pretty cool, is that it's pretty creative. So when you play Reboot, you're pretty much locked into a fully aggressive build of the deck. When you play Soul Striker, you're kind of locked into like mid-range / control. I like this leader because, in my opinion, he offers both. You can be aggressive with the free play 20Ks. You can be a little bit more mid-rangey with the way I'll explain that I play the deck. A lot of people that play AOD Boo, they actually do really aim for that turn 2 awaken. I actually don't want to awaken until turn 3 or turn 4 in this deck, and I'll explain why as we get into the deck profile. But regardless, let's get started. There is the core that you will play no matter what leader you're playing. That's going to be 3 to 4 copies of Bibidi, Overseer of Destruction. I play 4 copies because I never really want to miss it. Yes, we do play 4 copies of Hachiyak to search that out, but again, like I mentioned, I never want to take the chance of potentially missing this card, so I play it at 4/4, and your leader searching Hachiyak helps out a lot. A little unfortunate that you can't search the Bibidi, but that's pretty much fine, or Babidi rather, not Bibidi. So next up, for our other blue AOD, we're playing 4 Turles, Chaos of Agent of Destruction. He's really good. Attack, look at the top 5, add another agent. He also has unique and barrier. So when you get to your awakened side of your leader, obviously you stop gaining advantage. Your backside lets you search for AODs and add them to your hand. Your awakened side no longer lets you basically gain card advantage. So on your backside, it's really important to have cards like this that can help you maintain card advantage. He's pretty difficult to deal with because he does have the barrier. The unique is a little annoying, but definitely very fair, because if you didn't have unique, you could pretty easily just spam a ton of him onto the board, and that would be a little bit unfair. But again, you do want to have him, and sometimes it's worth saving him, especially if you have like a negate that you can use to save him, whether it be a garlic or some of the other negates we'll see in the deck. You save him, he'll either replace himself or continue to let you plus. And he's a great play too when you're going to awaken. You know, unlike Soul Striker or Reboot Gohan, sometimes when you need to awaken, you need to use that 1 energy. So the Turles is a great 1 energy play when you have the Babidi on the field, turning all of your agents into 1 less cost than they normally are. Next up, the blue stuff that's pretty much mandatory. 4 Centubean, of course we're playing it. One of the best reasons to play AOD is because it's kind of like an all-color deck. Now this build in particular is mostly blue-green. You'll see some other builds splash red. This build doesn't really splash red at all. Other builds play a little bit more yellow. We play some yellow in this deck, but we pretty much play the bare minimum of yellow in this deck. This is really a blue-green build, and it's meant to abuse the blue-green cards. Centubean, pretty obvious one, and in this deck it's amazing because, like I said before, you can play the mid-range game, you can also play the aggressive game, and Bean is one of the best cards for, you know, kind of letting you pivot into both those different play styles. Another card that I play that not a lot of other people play is 4 Whis Coercion. This card has generally been very, very popular in blue decks that don't use blue leaders because it's pretty similar to Dimension Magic, but it only gives you 1 energy back. But really, that 1 energy you get back is really, really strong. So you'll notice that's the end of the blue stuff. I don't play God-Sealing Technique Trunks, and I don't play the Janemba Unison. Again, because I'm not always trying to be super aggressive with this build, but when you do want to be aggressive with this build, you can very easily get a ton of AODs on the board by going for that early awaken. But in this build, I do want to play a little bit more reserve sometimes, and Whis Coercion is one of the best cards for that, because negating and then having your energy available, because you have a lot of counterattacks and counterplays that you can use on your opponent's turn. So Whis Coercion sets you up very, very nicely for that. And to complement the Whis Coercion, we are playing for Garlic Jr. Immortal Agent of Destruction. He becomes a 1-drop yellow negate when you have your Babidi out on the field. He basically says when you play him, you get to play an Agent of Destruction. I believe it's 2 costs or less, because you're pretty much always playing Turles or a super combo, and you're playing them from the deck with their skills negated for the turn. So more often than not, you'll use this as a counterattack to either get the Turles out of the deck, get it ready for the next turn to, you know, start searching and cycling, or you'll grab a super combo from the deck, which we'll see later on in the profile. But he's also very, very good aggressively. Sometimes that 1 energy 15k getting you 2 attackers, I mean, that's really broken generally anytime you do it. I mean, of course, you do want to be more defensive rather than offensive with it, but if the opportunity presents itself, if your opponent's tapped out on a random turn 3 and you can get yourself awaken with your leader effect, flip over, start playing a bunch of AODs for free, possibly a Unison for 3 energy, get a big swing in there, the Garlic is going to be great. And this is all the yellow that we play. I don't play any other yellow cards. I don't play Nimbus because I think fitting other yellow cards in this deck is kind of awkward, and I think it's the same thing for red to a degree. Like, some people will play the red Vegeta Agent of Destruction as well as Topo, and I think that's fine in certain builds. There's a few problems with that. Topo is very, very easily answered nowadays with all the counterplays that are available to answer it. And the other thing with that too is you're playing a very, very subpar Agent of Destruction, being the red Vegeta from set 6, I think it is. And it's kind of the same thing with yellow. The only other Agent of Destruction you can play is the Bojack one. He's not that great. Granted, I would say he's better than the Vegeta because you can free play him with your leader skill and then use his activate main. That's a pretty decent call to play that card as opposed to the red Vegeta. But fitting that and fitting Nimbus in the deck, I feel like takes too many slots for what I want the deck to do. So again, this is more of a blue-green build, not using so much yellow. That's pretty much all the yellow that we have in the deck. Next up, for our Unison, we are playing 4 copies of Vegeta Resolute Agent of Destruction. This is not the one you always see people maxing out on, but this is the one that I want to play. I don't really want to play the crit Janemba in this deck. I don't really think that giving access to God-Sealing Technique Trunks is necessarily all that important. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is a great card, but there are so many instances where just bouncing the card back to your opponent's hand, even though you are stopping the play, it doesn't get the job done when they can like free play another card or use it again the next turn and you're starting to fall behind in card advantage. I'd much rather play this guy, get the board wipe that I need. I'm a bigger fan of removal than I am of, you know, just bouncing back to the hand for where they could potentially reuse it. So getting this guy down using his board wipe is incredibly strong. I always want to play him on turn 3 or 4, and that's the other reason too why I want to awaken on turn 3-4 most of the time. I'll awaken on turn 3 if I can play this guy for 3 and know that being tapped out is relatively safe, and it can be relatively safe by having a Frieza Charismatic Villain to back this up. If I know that that's really all my opponent, you know, has on their next turn, that they can't play through a Frieza Charismatic Villain, I'll gladly play this on 3 and end up tapped out, and then turn 4 and beyond, I'm just so far ahead with the ginormous Double Strike Crit Pressure, and then all the other cards I can play in my opponent's turn, like Garlic and a few more we'll see in a second. But besides that, otherwise, I'll awaken on turn 4, and I'll play this guy for 3. I'll have 1 energy open, usually for Bean or Whis Coercion, stuff of that nature. So that's pretty much, you know, me curving out with the deck. Next up, we have 4 copies of Agent 13, Exterminating Agent of Destruction. This is one of the cards you miss out on when you don't play this leader, and this card really is a powerhouse. He's one of the cards that answers Topo incredibly efficiently. I mean, it's essentially Vegeta the Cruel tied to this leader, but you know, a little bit better because he actually gets his effect in the counterplay timing, so your opponent's card doesn't actually get their enter play skill, which is honestly really broken. This guy for one is really good. The auto to put things back into the deck is decent for really extended games where you need to put like Turles back into the deck to get it with Garlic. That's a pretty neat combo you can do there, but the counterplay is definitely the main thing about it. Next up, we have 4 copies of Broly, Invincible Agent of Destruction. This is along the same lines as Turles. We're playing 4 copies of it because once we get to our Awakened side, you can play him for free as long as you have the Bibbidi on the board, or the Bobbidi rather. And the Bobbidi pretty much always sticks around unless you're playing against red or something that can remove barrier in green typically. Otherwise, the Bobbidi is pretty much always staying around. But free playing him on your Awakened side helps you continue to gain advantage because this card looks at the top 3 and adds any card. Honestly, an incredible effect. It's been really good to just grab, you know, random things you need, like whether it's Whis Coercion, whether it's a secret rare, which we'll see in a second. Grabbing any card is incredibly good. Then we have 3 copies of Android 13 Agent of Destruction from set 6. This card is very good. I used to play 1 copy of the blue Janemba Agent of Destruction, but I ended up just cutting that for 3 copies of this. And this is really great because when you can free play him and you still have your energy available to tap 2 for his skill, which is a very strong skill, pop a battle card and your opponent pitches a card. Sometimes you need that just tall removal. You know, sometimes you can't afford to tap out for the Vegeta Agent of Destruction. Sometimes you just don't want the mini removal that the deck offers. You just want the really tall removal. And 3 copies of this card, crit body, pay 2, kill anything, make them pitch. It's honestly been amazing in the deck. Next up, we have our 4 super combos. The auto never really comes up a whole lot. It's pretty much just the fact that it's a searchable super combo. You can fetch it from the deck with Garlic. It's unfortunate it doesn't draw, but it is different. It is unique, which is kind of neat. And not even talking about unique on the card text, talking about unique in what it does, like the auto of preventing your opponent from playing counter plays. Generally, if this thing's on the board and you don't use it too soon, it can very easily die, which is a little unfortunate, but cool that it's searchable, cool that we can grab it from the deck. Oh, and I should mention too that I'm not playing the Agent of Destruction extra card. I just don't like it in the deck. I don't think it's necessary for consistency because there's actually 2 reasons. 1, I usually don't aim to self-awaken super fast, so I don't care about the life rip that the card offers. And 2, playing it, even though it is a 0 cost extra card to potentially miss, for me is just not worth it. So if I was playing the hyper aggressive, you know, Awaken super quick build, I would play the extra card Strikes Back, but in this build I am not. That would be another great yellow card to pair with Garlic and Nimbus, but again, I don't think it's worth it in a build quite like this. Next up, we have 4 copies of Frieza Charismatic Villain. Another card I was playing in the deck that I cut was Zamasu Deity's Wrath. I talked about it on a video recently that me and my teammates, we've just been talking about it, and it doesn't seem like the card is amazing, but sometimes it's really hard to pair it with the Frieza. Getting the Frieza in play in the perfect time, making sure you have the Zamasu in your hand at the right time, and then the Frieza not getting KO'd. We're just trying the deck without it, and honestly, I haven't really missed it. I think it is a great card you can play if you like it, if you feel like it's a successful combo for you, but in higher levels of play, a lot of people know about that, so I'm probably not going to let the Frieza stick as long as they can help it. So just my 2 cents on that and why we're not trying that card, but also nice that it does bring down the price of the deck a little bit. Next up, 2 max power Kamehameha. I think this is a great main deck card because 1, we're playing Whis Coercion, so you can Coercion, follow up with this, follow up with Garlic. You have a lot of negate options there. The removal is very nice for matchups like Sin Shenron, anything just playing really big boss monsters. And the fact that you can warp your agents to then play the Arcane Absorption Majin Buu, for me, has been really great. Not a lot of games go to like turn 5, turn 6, but when they do, the Buu is just pretty clutch there. Of course, you could play Celzino in this deck. I think that that is a playable card, but sometimes it's very difficult to get 12 on the board when it has to be amongst, you know, different 3 costs and 2 costs. Again, Frieza Charismatic Villain is a card that helps contribute to that as well, so maybe it's not the worst thing in the world, but I like the Buu. It's a little flavorful, and for me, it has shown results. You know, blue is really the only thing that can answer this because they can basically bounce it back to your hand and prevent you from getting your auto. But besides that, guys, that's pretty much the deck profile in its entirety. I do hope you enjoyed it. Definitely leave any questions down in the comments. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.